Hello and welcome to the Miko Bits Show. And I'm your host, Miko Bits. We're going live today with AR and VR game design. We've got quite the expert, John Wolff, here to talk to us a little bit about designing for the metaverse. He's got a really exciting game for you. It's actually Tontachi, which is kind of a Japanese name. It's a bit like Tamagotchi. It's your little piglet friend. So looking forward to kind of hearing a lot more about this, but without further ado, here's John.
Hey, what's up? What's going on, everyone? Miko-san, thank you so much for allowing me to be on the show to kind of just talk about the work that I've done. But yes, my name is John Wolff. I am a longtime video game developer. I went over into Japan to work in the video game industry, so I'm fluent in Japanese. Miko, you are Japanese, I'm pretty
Yep,
sure. So
that's right.
なんか日本語話したいならぜひ言ってくださいとか
I love
we
it.
could definitely have some fluid conversations going on there. But anyway, I had the really cool opportunity to work on the first ever Japanese blockchain game, which was made by this company called Good Luck 3, and the game was called Cryptoink. And
Wow.
that allowed me to merge this interest from video games into blockchain. And ever since then, which is really 2019, I just been really kind of obsessed or interested in how I can really blend these together. So that would then span, other Japanese blockchain game companies I worked for, like Double Jump Tokyo for a little bit. And then now with my video game studio, I'm merging these two together to make a mobile game and also a augmented reality game. So that's kind of the whole spiel, but we can go into further stuff, whatever might interest you and your audience.
Yeah, I guess one of the things I would love to get is just a little bit of more of on your background. So, like, how did you get to? I guess you were in Osaka, so like that's where my family's originally from. So how did you find yourself over there?
Yeah, so I was working in Boston after college at a mobile advertising company, and we actually had like a Japanese division, but it was in shambles. And it was so interesting to see that the reason why we couldn't do business effectively was because no one at the company spoke Japanese, and no one really understood the subtleties of Japanese culture when it comes to doing business. So that was really interesting for me, who already had an interest in Japan, and really because of the video game industry, because when we think of games, we think of, Nintendo, we think of Sega, we think of all these OGs and traditional games that are coming from over there. So blending this business side as well as my own passions, I was like, all right, you know what, I'm this job I have in mobile advertising is okay, but it's not really what I want to do. So I packed up and I left and I moved to Japan. And I put myself into an intensive language program that was over in Osaka. So I went to Kansai Daigaku, Kansai University, and there I did an intensive language program for a year and a half. It was hell. And when I woke up, it was like if you've seen The Matrix, and when Keanu Reeves like gets all the information downloaded and he opens his eyes, he goes, "I know kung fu." So it was like Japanese, like from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day. And then one day I was like, I'm fluent. I actually have the moment when I knew that I was fluent. If you want to hear that story, like I realized it. But after that, I was in Osaka, and then I started to do shusho katsudo, which is job hunting,
Yeah.
my own American version of it. And I wanted to work at a video game studio, so I started going around just trying to pitch myself the best I could, being like, "Hey, I make video games. I know English. I know the Japanese. I know Japanese. I know the video game industry. I've been working in it. Can I work at your company?" And most people were like, "No, because you have no experience." I was like, "No experience. I used to be a data scientist, like over in Boston, like doing all this stuff, but I had no Japanese experience." So it was really hard for me to get a job. But eventually, a startup studio over in Fukuoka hired me. So I moved from Osaka to Fukuoka. And then the rest is, as they say, history.
Wow, wow. That is
So,
so astonishing. And what an incredible journey. I think your Japanese sounds very fluent, so I'm pretty impressed. So, that's an amazing thing. And I think one other thing I want to double click on too is you did a stint with Gumi Games where they're publishing Double Jump Tokyo's My
yeah,
Crypto Heroes. So
yeah.
I'd love to kind of learn a bit more about that before we get along to Tontachi.
Sure, sure. So yeah, it was really cool to see exactly, there's not a lot of Japanese blockchain gaming companies out there. Again, Good Luck 3 made the first one, Double Jump made made My Crypto Heroes, which was great. And so I came on around when Brave Frontier Heroes came out. And what I really enjoyed about this is that you had not seen at this point, and this was still early like 2020, that we had not seen bigger studios, known studios with known IP cross over into the blockchain space. Because again, I love to see how Japan actually leads a lot when in some of this new technology or things. And then later on, actually, other places catch up. And I feel like actually Japan gets a little bit left behind, but I digress. But so what was really cool was that Brave Frontier, is a famous title. Like I think has a record for having the most mobile downloads in like 2014 or 15 or something with Brave Frontier.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see how Double Jump was able to get that partnership or to make that IP to be like, all right, we're going to make a spinoff. And I really, really appreciated and enjoyed the fact that I was able to be in on that because I was doing community management. I was helping out Double Jump to understand, how they wanted to break into the overseas audience, but also to see how, games are going to end up merging NFTs into their product. And since then, now Double Jump has partnerships with Square Enix and Sega. And, now over here, we have everyone who's like, Atari wants to work with Sandbox and all these other things. But this was one of the first projects that really did that. So I had the opportunity to actually work on a cross project, which I was so happy about, in which I was linking up with Gumi over in Singapore and actually Gumi over in Japan, and then also Double Jump. So I had 3 different actors that I was talking to be like, all right, guys, we're going to do a campaign where if people, we're going to have one of the Brave Frontier Hero characters that the community decides to show up and be on sale inside Brave Frontier Heroes. And they're like, okay, let's do it. So then I was able to work with them to have a contest, what is it, like a character contest on Facebook and on their Discord. So like everyone decide who you want. All right, they decided, we put it on the marketplace in the form of NFT. People were buying it. So then you had people who don't know anything about blockchain, right? Native gamers.
Yep.
Getting into the blockchain space through this campaign. And then we also had that inside of Brave Frontier Heroes, if you completed, X amount of missions, then you'd be able to win items that we would obviously give you items inside Brave Frontier Heroes, but we also had an agreement with Brave Frontier where we would give you items that they could use in the native Brave Frontier game. So we had interoperability going all over the place. And first of all, I was really proud that I was able to execute this, but also like it really got individuals who like Brave Frontier into Brave Frontier Heroes. And that was a really cool project. So Brave Frontier Heroes is still being ran. There's still going on now. My Crypto Heroes has introduced their own coin now of My Kuti. My Kuti is like their Japanese shorthand for My Crypto Heroes. My Kuti,
Yes.
My Kuti coin. So My Crypto Heroes coin. And they've been able to get that out there for it to circulate into their game economy. And now they've moved on to some new projects, but those existing games are still running, still going strong. And it was a real pleasure to be able to kind of still have these relations with them now, but to really get more of a sense of not only how Japanese games are made, but now how Japanese blockchain games are made. And I've even been trying to internalize that into my own project. So yeah, if you have any more specific questions, I'd be happy to answer, but that's kind of what my experience was like working
It's
with
just,
Jump.
it's really tremendous. I mean, for me, one of the things that I'm really fascinated by, and the reason why I really invited you to come join the show, is that like in a way, like your path has been really novel, right? And
Yeah.
your novel path is really, in a sense, there's an element that kind of describes this kind of archetypal hero's journey, in the sense that you kind of travel from sort of like a Tatooine into like the Rebel Alliance, or and so you move from like a from a like a Dorothy, Kansas, to like Oz, so like because in a way, and you mentioned the Matrix as well, which is also kind of a classic template sort of hero's journey, right? So in a way, like the necessity to kind of metabolize this kind of like extreme, and to be honest, like as a Japanese American, like the extent to which Japan is different is it's stark. Like like Japan is very different. Like it's an uncolonized country with an indigenous kind of nature spiritual tradition called Shintoism. Like it's different. Japan is
Yeah,
different. So like
yeah.
I'd love to hear your commentary on that.
Oh man. Oh my goodness. Well, starting from the fact you talked about the hero's journey, I like how you said that because some I actually love the old Greek tales of the heroes of like Hercules and Perseus and everything, and
Yeah.
they go and every single one of those heroes goes on. They have 12 steps in their journey, and it's halfway through where they meet their antithetical self. They have to end up defeating pretty much their opposite, and they don't really
Amazing.
defeat, like they actually merge with it. So I was in Japan, and in order to learn the language, I had to deconstruct every single aspect of not only language but myself, because
Oh my God.
talk about how Japanese is different. I mean, the front cover, the back cover is the front cover. We read horizontally, they read vertically. So if you can understand that, I mean, like everything else is backwards, right? It's a very simple mechanism to get that. It's everything else is different. So I had to rebuild up myself so much, and it was very difficult. Let alone, I think it's Fraz Cannon. He's a black psychologist from like back like almost like late 1800s, and he
Yeah.
says to take on a culture is to take on, or to learn a language is take on a culture, and
Yeah.
so it very much was a lot like me to have to try to figure out so many things out about Japanese culture. And the last thing I'll say, of quotes I have, is from Beowulf, where it says foreign places yield more to he himself who is worth meeting. So instead of fighting the culture, really, I just allowed myself to, really just live it. And I had so many beautiful experiences in that regard. But there was a lot of, Western value and Eastern value that clashed. Shudan Shugi means collectivism.
Oh
Kojin
yeah.
Shugi means individualism.
Yeah.
So Shudan Shugi is reflected in video games, right? I wrote an article about it. I actually wrote this paper actually in Japanese, and it's reflected as a cultural value, but it's reflected in video games. So you see, right, what game reflects that value? Something like Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy doesn't do that well over in the West,
Yeah.
outside the people who love it, but it's because we don't culturally resonate with it, as opposed to Call of Duty, Kojin Shugi, first-person shooter. It's only me. I'm against everyone else, and bringing myself up by my bootstraps. So it's amazing to see that reflected in video game genres alone. To see the favoritism of how they work. Also, I mean, think about it. Brave Frontier Heroes, My Crypto Heroes, they work really well over in Japan because they are traditional. They have a more traditional Japanese essence in terms of game development, and they are turn-based, and they're more of group-based games, where it's harder for them to get to the overseas audience because they're like, well, we like the fact that it's a blockchain game, so therefore I like it because I can make money, but this game itself doesn't necessarily resonate with who I am. So
No,
that's in the gaming
I
world.
love this. No. I really wanted to get here because this
Okay.
is a
Okay.
lot of the richness of it, right? And
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean by this richness is that you've identified this sort of ultimate hyper-base layer distinction, right? And
Yeah.
the thing that's fascinating is that unpacking that part of the culture is so fascinating because, for example, one of the cultural elements that's sort of almost like this aesthetic in Japan is this concept of like the Gambaru culture, right? Which
Mm,
is I kind of translate it as sort of bravely producing effort, right? And in a way, the thing that's so interesting is that it's actually Shudan Shugi in the sense that your purpose is not to glorify yourself by producing effort, right? And
correct.
it's not an ego trip, right?
Correct.
It's just that you notice that when people produce effort, they uplift their community, right? That people
Yes.
don't get dragged down, right?
Right.
And so,
Right.
in a sense, like the
It's not about
purpose, yeah. But it's
not
so
about me.
amazing
It's
because
about the collective. Yeah.
when people see this kind of Gumbaro culture, they really think it's about individual, like expression and
Yeah.
heroism, but it's completely community centric. Very
Yeah.
amazing insight. So I definitely
Yeah.
appreciate it. And when you talked about this kind of idea of overcoming the self in the hero's journey, right? You really kind of reflected on this kind of construct of apotheosis, right? It's sort of that peak expression of this kind of the abyss, right? You're
Yeah.
inside of like the land
Yeah.
of the dead,
Yeah.
right? And you kind of come into confrontation with yourself, right?
I
And
mean,
it's
my coup de grace, again, because we're not even talking about blockchain stuff anymore, but was that just before I left, because I was there for about 4.5 years. I keep this story pretty close to the chest. But the last thing I was able to do is I was able to actually meditate with Zen Buddhist monks, and then I actually left the next week. So I went to a temple that happened to
oh
be nearby. Again, like, I speak Japanese, and they're like, to make it a really cool, example, or rather,
Yeah.
just for people to see it, was like, it was like going into a club, because I wanted to go see a specific statue, and the monks were like, no, 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 you're not allowed to come this close. And I like gave them my spiel, was like, I've been translating these texts, this is who I am. And they were like, oh no, go ahead, go ahead. And they're like, they let me to get closer and like actually be along with them. Yeah. And then someone else,
That's
then someone else closer stopped me, was like, what are you doing here? And then in the back, they're like, no, 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 let him through. Let him do what he came here to do today. And like, it was like, all right, I'm
you
ready.
know
I think I'm ready to go back home.
I'm getting chills because I'm thinking what I'm thinking about is I'm thinking about Trevor Noah's Born a Crime, right?
Mm,
And I'm thinking about a very specific scene, and it's a specific scene where he's kind of walking around a big city. I think it might have been like Johannesburg or something,
mm,
and he hears these dudes behind him, right? And the people behind him are experiencing him as like a white person, right?
right.
Because he's kind of mixed race, right? And so they say like
Yeah.
they say like let's mug this white person,
Yeah.
right? And the thing that he does is he gets their tribal dialect
Uh-huh.
and he nails it
Yeah.
perfectly, and
Yeah.
he says yeah, let's go get him, right? And as if he was them
He was
looking for an additional
yeah,
person
yeah,
to
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
victimize, right? And
yeah, yeah.
instantly the people that were going to attack him
uh,
were just they just totally mind
yeah,
shifted. They were
yeah,
like
yeah,
wow,
yeah,
and so they had this moment where they're like he's really one of us, right? Like this is that is an amazing moment. So I
yeah.
love
I
hearing
have
about it.
Yeah, I have a couple of instances and stories like that. But yeah, merging the two and then having to come back home, back because I'm in Michigan, to try to bring it all together was really difficult, because after all of that, I had developed a side of me and a part of me, and I knew all this industry stuff. But I was like, how can I, congeal it, amalgamate it in for my own financial benefit, but also for my own, personal growth. And that's why I've been really happy that I was able to maintain the connections that I had, and stay in this industry to make this project. But anyway, so that was my Japanese journey on
No,
the
it's
just
super
on the
helpful.
surface level.
And obviously we really want to jump into Tontachi and the games that you're making. For me, one of the things that this show is about is it's about kind of the humans, right? So I'm super appreciative that you kind of shared a little bit about yourself. I think there's definitely kind of superpowers there, and I'd love to further this conversation because you've had a very formative and unique set of human personal experiences, and I think it's got to be reflected in what you're doing.
Thank you, thank you. But also to make it relevant, just as a, that was the time when again, before this, even before Double Jump, but also still over at Good Luck 3, and we had Cryptoink. I was doing international business for them, and that's when I began to meet Benny of CryptoKitties, because they would have their first informational session over in Tokyo. That's when I met Jeffrey, Jiho.
Yep.
We all were very early in that stage before any of us had 200 daily active users in our games, and we were just hanging out. I've had plenty of drinks with them. I've taken them out in a town in Tokyo. We've done a collaboration with them in the past. So like, it was a really cool time of blockchain games, because then it was about just interoperability and like trying to figure out how we're going to grow in this space, what kind of cool games we can make with each other. It's gotten, I mean, obviously NFTs and cryptocurrency has blown up since then, and now we have so much more industry and IP and branding going on. But it was really like that early 2019 when it was really just like us hanging out and stuff like that. And I really appreciate that time to be on the ground floor of that, of this renaissance that we're seeing right now. But again, that all happened because I was in Japan. I went to Finland for blockchain related conferences. That's where I met. Sebastian for the first time of Sandbox.
Yep. Yep. He's been on
We
the show
there.
too.
Yeah, so it was the BCG, the blockchain gaming conference over in Helsinki, and they had like a roadshow pitch competition, and we didn't win. I was like, oh, I'm trying to win this competition. He wins, and I'm like, who is this guy who's gonna, who just beat me? And he ends up, obviously you see everything that's going on with the Sandbox now, but it was him, me, and like 2 other teams. But we became good friends then, and it was really cool just that I consider myself really young in the space with these individuals during that time when I was in Japan. It was really special.
Yeah, it is an amazing gateway into what you're building now, right? Which is the Tontachi game. So I'm super excited. I think earlier we were saying you could share some screens, so I'd love to kind of get a better feeling
Yeah,
for the game, and then we can start talking about your motivation, inspiration, roadmap, all the good things.
sure. Okay, yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, the I'll show just the quick tech demo, and then I'll show kind of the cool little partnership we have going on right now. But so as I mentioned, I was helping out Good Luck 3 when they made this game called Cryptoink, and so and those are these really cute pigs you see here.
I love
The
it.
uh, the characters exist over on OpenSea. There's about 88,000 that have been bred. So, very similar to Axe Your Crypto Kitties, where you have a bunch of characters. You can breed a red one and a blue one together. You get a purple one. That's a poor example of how robust this blockchain-based DNA can be. But here's a collection of where they exist. And
I love
so
it.
what I was talking about with them when I was there was like, you guys have the first 3D NFT game that's out there. You let alone you have the first Japanese blockchain game. You have the first 3D NFT game that's out there. We can do more with this. And this is actually where, again, cultural values kind of conflicted, and they were like, well, we're not exactly sure if we see this going where you think. And I was like,
Yeah,
allow me, in Japanese was like, most honorable sirs, please allow me the humble right to be able to utilize these characters so that I
I
may
love
humbly
this.
make a game that'll honorably, do you guys
Amazing.
justice. And they were
Amazing.
like, yeah, sure. So I have
So cool.
I have an IP right to be able to utilize their characters, but I have been utilizing them to build out my own specific game, which I'm going to show right now. So this was my wallet that I was showing of the ones that I have. So just keep
Is that an
a
Axie?
yeah. So again, like I said, back in 2019, like we were all friends. So we actually did a collaboration with them. So one of our game characters is a land item. If you look on their land items and you see the little pig on a treadmill, that's a
Yeah.
representation of our partnership. And on our game, we had a set number of Krypton, our crypto pigs. Krypton, tone is the character
Yep.
for pig in Japanese.
Pig. Yep.
Uh, uh, has axes on top of them. So people haven't even seen 3D axes before. And actually, I use this in the example, so you'll see it. So these are examples of some of the ones that I own. So this is my wallet, right? So now I'm going to and there we go. There's the Axie one specifically. So we were all buddy buddy, and everyone's like, yeah, go ahead, give it a shot, like see what you can do. So this is our game. The UI looks a little bit different now. This is still a little bit rough, but you go through, you pick your first off-chain character here. It's called an eggton.
Yep.
Kryptons are ones that have crypto infused. Eggtons are ones that are off-chain. They have
Oh,
this
he's
really
awesome.
cute little character. Yeah, he's cute, right? It took us a while to get these to recreate these graphics, but now you put in your name. I give it the name of Mr. Oinky, and then we have a little interface here of a window, and you take it outside. And when you say outside, where do you go? You go outside into augmented reality. So this is a room that I
Oh,
have, and I'm mapping out, the room. It's scanning the room, understanding what objects exist there, what flat surfaces exist, and then I'm able to then just instantiate it right there in front of you. So there it is. Now we have our
oh,
off-chain character looking all cute in augmented reality. And what can I do with it? Well, then I can now feed it, and I can pet it. I think the first thing I do here in this video is I pet it. No, I feed it. Okay. So then I drop, a snack. It goes to find it. It goes and jumps and it
oh,
eats it, and it's all happy, right? So your reactions, it's kawaii, right?
oh, it
And
is.
and
That is
so
cute.
and that's what's cool, because again, this is an amalgamation of the projects of things that I've been doing, because in Japan, I worked with this company that used to have the rights to make Sanrio games, Gudetama. So that's Hello Kitty, right? So
Yes.
they understand the kawaii element of this super stimuli of cuteness, which is going to make you have an attachment with it. That's what we're going for in this game.
Hello Kitty, by the way, I just wanted to assert that I have had some conversations about it because, in a way, what's happening with NFT is it's sort of the object first database for the metaverse, right? For
Okay.
the
Yep.
new internet, right? And
Yep.
so when you think about it as object first, the thing that's so interesting is that the objects are actually kind of largely detached from narrative, right? So if you go back into the history of this, right, Sanrio is almost like Hello Kitty is almost like the example of almost like character, which is sort of the embodiment of like cuteness, but
Yes.
there's no story. Like there's
Yeah.
there's
There's no.
nothing.
Yep.
There's no narrative. There's nothing. Right. There's no
Exactly.
video game. There's no movie. There's no
Right.
theme. Now there's theme
Right.
park. There's
Yep.
everything. But like
Yep.
at the beginning, it was just this is cute and that's all. Right. So
Well said.
it's very seminal to this idea of like NFT. Right. Because it's sort of embodied cuteness. Anyhow,
Exactly.
please go ahead.
No, that was a great point because during this time, what I realized when we launched this project and we had people interested, but their interest fell off because they weren't seeing enough utility. And I personally feel this is going to happen with NFTs in the future because this has already happened again in Japan, which is ahead of its time when this stuff happens. That it's great that you have, a piece of art. I'm not taking anything away from that, but sometimes people are like, well, what can I do with it? Like, what can I actually do with this object? So we had these NFTs in our game that you could do things with, but it wasn't enough for people. And for me, it was like, well, what can we do next with exactly the object itself? And that's why I was like, let's go ahead and see what we can do about augmented reality, which segues perfect into what I'm going to show you right now, is that the proprietary technology that my team has built out, Urban Electronic Games, is that you're able to natively import those 3D NFTs into the game. So you can see here, it says pasted from OpenSea. I pasted my wallet address. And now you're going to see that all of those Krypton that exist within my wallet are now natively here in the game, right there. Those are all the ones I showed you before. And we're still going to go with the Axie example because you saw that one, is that,
Yep.
all right, I choose that one. So now I have imported a 3D NFT into my game where you're going to see it right here. Took a second to load, only a second. And now it's here. And so what I'm going to do, now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go back in augmented reality. But first, I'm going to check my tasks, see what I got. I fed my Krypton, so I'm going to go ahead and claim that real quick. I pet my Krypton, so I'm going to go ahead and claim those quick things real quick because, it's a game after all. And then we go back into AR. And now I'm doing the same thing where I'm looking for a spot. And there we go. So now you're seeing what a lot of people haven't seen before. You're seeing a 3D Axie people have never seen before. You're seeing 3D NFTs that people don't even know that NFTs can be 3D, and they don't even know you can do more things. This is utility for an existing, more static piece that now has been brought to life and is now your pet that you can raise and you can take care of, and you can do really cool things with it. So there's one more element that I'm going to show in terms of how utility is cool here. But as this video plays out, you're going to now see I was petting it. So I have to go around different parts of its body to find it. So behind its ear, maybe its bottom, its nose, and some places it'll like, some places it won't. Then I start walking and you'll see that it's following me because the technology allows us to map out an entire 3D room. So I'll go into another room, and it's going to completely follow me. It's even going to go up on this ledge. I'm like, come on, you can do it. It's like, come on. And then it keeps on following me. So it'll follow me for, as long as I guide it, it'll come. And we're doing really cool things like tracking, health metrics and things like that with this. And the last thing I'll show just real quick is just what is a cool thing we're doing right now is I was able to kind of work with Niantic a little bit. And so now their SDK is kind of what's being ran in the game. And so we're actually now able to do local races. So if you and I, Miko, were in the same room and you had yours at level 5 and I had mine at level 1, you would win. But we're able to map out a room and then actually have a race happen from point A to point B. And the winner is going to be decided upon, who is taking care of their creature the most. So that's the whole kind of like gameplay, and we've been meshing a game economy into it because if you're a blockchain gamer, you have to be able to make a game economy, not just a game anymore, which takes a little bit more time. But that's what I've been doing with a previous association while also still doing something proprietary for myself, and hopefully it takes off and becomes a project that a lot of people like.
That's pretty amazing, right? And obviously, like what we've seen kind of crypto kitties, sort of the origin
Yeah.
of NFT, right? And obviously, we're seeing lots of dogs that are kind of finding their way into Doge coins and
Yeah.
Shibas and things, and now we're kind of seeing piglets. So
Yeah. Exactly. Well, they were there. It's just we're just trying to make these OG projects come back because CryptoPunks had their resurgence. Everyone knows it only, and everyone knows Axie now, but people are like, oh, CryptoKitties was around. So it's just me trying to give more utility to existing NFT and their furnishing project while still, making something novel for myself and for people. But yeah,
that's
kind of how it's.
amazing. Yeah, so one of the things that I think is a clear predecessor and something that actually has also kind of precedent in the crypto community is like Tamagotchi, right? So I think for the audience's sake, Tamagotchi was sort of an egg shaped pet, right? And Tama is like a egg, so Tamagotchi,
Tamago,
right,
yeah.
is it's basically like this idea of your egg pet, and then it little was a digital item that you could basically take care of a pet, right? And it
Yep.
eventually hatches and does all kinds of things, right? So,
Yeah.
in DeFi, there's Avegochi, right, which is the
Yeah.
Ave Tamagotchi, right? So I feel
Yeah.
like you're sort of kind of coming into it from a direction. So I'd love to have your comment.
I will take nothing against Abagochi or Avagachi, or I won't take anything away from them except for the fact of their usage of the Japanese term is they're just using it, they're appropriating it almost a little bit. And I hate to say that in a negative way, but they're using it because the reason why Tontachi is named Tontachi, as you mentioned, Tamagachi, Tamago, egg, and then
Yes.
Tachi is a pluralizer, or it's plural as an s or like a we, but tomodachi also means friends in Japanese, right? So
Yes.
Tamagotchi is actually eggs or egg friends. That's the actual translation of what it is. Tontachi is tone as it is pig in Japanese. Tachi is still that pluralizer, so it either translates to pigs or pig friends. So that's the reason why the wordplay, because people are like, oh, are you trying to use Avagachi? I'm like, no, I'm actually just having fun with words that I know that they translate into what the product is. It's just clever. It's just wordplay that's clever. But it is interesting that a lot of these blockchain games right now are going in on the pet avenue. There are so
Yep.
many that are doing that because everyone is pretty much trying to replicate a Pokemon type model of
Yeah.
having a lot of characters. Some of them are scarce. We have a battle system. Like, I'm not taking away that from anybody, but it, for whatever reason, the collectible aspect of the traditional Pokemon and Tamagotchi projects seem to work well in the DeFi blockchain NFT gaming space. It's very interesting. And then everyone tries to, toot their own horn that, like, hey, we're the next gotchis of whatever, or hey, we're Pokemon Go on the blockchain. I personally am just trying to make a project of quality and having some nice wordplay there. But those are my comments on, I think, kind of how that's been working in the space thus far.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I would say another kind of meaningful precedent is kind of if you go back to the birth of the internet and e-commerce, there was kind of this Beanie Babies, right, which is kind of in some ways tied to the birth of eBay,
Yeah.
right? So if you look at the contrasts, right, like obviously eBay was kind of the auction store for physical objects, right, and the parallel is kind of OpenSea, the
Yeah.
eBay for digital objects, right? But if you go back to Beanie Babies,
Yep.
there was this kind of like boom, right? And I think
Yep.
the parallel here is that the Beanie Baby is a kind of collectible, but it's also kind of this cute animal
Yep.
experience and collectible from that perspective. So
Yep.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, it's great that you mentioned that because I don't know if you for so on Vice has a series called like the Dark Side of whatever. So they have the Dark Side of the '90s, and they actually have an episode about Beanie Babies. So I think I watched it like maybe a month ago because I was over here being like, wow, like this is like this. These are some useful notes for like what's going on right now. So I completely saw this parallels. I completely agree with you. The specific notes that I can make is that it makes you think about again supply because at a certain point, the creator kept on saying that like he knew that he could drive sales by saying this is the final one or like they're going to be no more left. And so there was a huge craze, I think, at the turn of the century of everyone buying Beanie Babies because they thought it was going to end. And then he comes back and says, "Welcome to the turn of the century. Now these Beanie Babies are here." And that's when their popularity and their value plummeted because it was like, well, we're just going to keep on having Beanie Babies out. And so that happens a lot in blockchain projects in terms of supply, and you have so much supply, you have inflated value, you don't have utility for them. So it's like, why do I have these collectibles, and are they really as rare as we're kind of making them out to be? Which again was a problem that we had in about 2019, which is the reason why I feel like this remix project gives them value again. But I feel like you're going to end up seeing this issue again of supply, and your economics and come into blockchain come into play when you're minting your NFTs. So yes, the parallel is definitely there, but I'm definitely looking at it more from a blockchain economist point of view, as well as the novelty of the collectibles themselves.
No, I like what you're saying about supply, right? Because the thing that's funny about something like Shiba, right, is that if you have a Shiba, if you have a Doge, then you can have a Shiba. And if you can have a Shiba, then you can have an Akita. And if you can have an Akita, then you can have a Chihuahua. And if you can have a Chihuahua, you know, so it's sort of like when does that end, right? So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I think it's definitely that is kind of like the toxicity of that
right.
whole kind of money printing paradigm, right? So
Yep.
I think it is good. I think but I think that the thing that you're touching that I think is so amazing is that like the reason why things like Pokemon took off, right? And even things like if you look at like things like Breath of the Wild, right? So you look at these kind of like all of these things. In a way, one of the things Japan has been able to successfully export is kind of this Shintoism connection to nature and the natural world, right? So whether it's
Sure.
Miyazaki or whatever it is, like the thing that bring comes across is the energetic attention
Yeah,
to nature, right? So I
yeah,
think I think that's something that's exportable, right? Whereas like so many other things are not. I think you probably have this like amazing kind of Boeki mindset where you can see like that's exportable, this is not exportable, right? Like and I think this pig is cute, like that is exportable, right? Like that, like this pig is cute is like that is universal. There's nowhere on the planet where someone look at that pig and be like, "Oh, I that pig makes me angry. I hate that pig. I want to
Yeah.
fight him."
Well,
Like
I was
it's
I
like
was
no,
actually I was actually mad when we were working the project because I saw them and I was mad at myself because I was like I'm mad about how cute I think this is. I was like just no reaction. I was like God damn it. I was like man. I was like I'm not like why do I feel this way? But it was really cool. But you're right. You're right. That connection is there. They do a great job of. I mean, Japan is the country for exporting soft power, right? Anime. Everyone knows these things. Everyone loves it. Everyone loves game culture that comes from there, anime culture that comes from there. So they have found a way to be able to make that monetizable for them. But I wonder how that's going to work in the NFT space because uh, now we're just talking about international business in general, which is hard when the country operates in a certain way. And again, we go back to different cultural values. But
yeah,
yeah, I'm not taking anything away from them in the fact of like, yes, they understand this connection with nature, this connection with the ability between person and product and making that relation. And again, that's one of the reasons why I was like, I really want to amalgamate it within this project because if nothing else, I'm quintessentially successful for having made a game, made a blockchain game, and made it with its Japanese elements with a Japanese partner, and hopefully that really solidifies my career in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, I mean, they're making some really cool things, and they always have been.
yeah. I mean, it's if you just go into the domain of gaming, right? Like Japan has had successful export, right? Like if you look at Nintendo, right, you just look at all that, it's like, okay, nice job, right? If you look at PlayStation with
Yeah,
Sony, like nice job, right? So it there's a thing going on. Like it's definitely like,
yeah,
because Japan is just some tiny country, right? So like,
yeah,
what's up with that? So there's definitely a lot of amazing things you can do. And
yeah.
I think you've really got cool things.
They're it concerns me about their legislation a bit because like cryptocurrency used to be very broadly adopted over there and now it's a lot more heavily regulated and so that has made it a little bit difficult to do things with cryptocurrency, let alone other limitations and checks and balances that exist. But the innovation is there. It's always interesting to see how anything becomes popular in the end.
Well, this has been really exciting. I'm looking forward to NFT NYC.
Yeah,
So
plug it. We're on a panel together. Let them know.
that's right. We're gonna be John and I are gonna be doing a metaverse panel.
Yep.
So I think that'll be really fun. I think it's really a vital service that we will try our best to provide, which is that the
Yes.
metaverse and NFT, like it's pretty irresistible, right? It's a pretty important
Yeah.
topic. So
Yeah.
we're very
Yeah.
happy.
Yep, we'll be talking on supply. Michael Arnold will be there to talk about more about what we're talking about in terms of supply, but in general, we're gonna have a really cool talk. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing the stage with you. And thank you so much for having me on here.
Oh, wonderful! It's been a great show. I really appreciate your time, and we'll see you over there.
Okay. All right. See you soon.
Okay, thanks.